Matthew Dickerson is with us for his regular talk each Wednesday on technology. How are you, Matthew?
I'm very good, actually. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for asking.
Good on you. Now, the Apple Watch is all set up to do ECG. It's finally been approved by the Therapeutic Goods Administration, has it?
It has been, actually, and the Apple Watch has had the ability to do ECG for a little while now. Apple Series 4 came out with the ability, 5 had that ability, and 6 had that ability, but the TGA, as you say, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, have basically said they weren't happy with the quality of what it gave, so they didn't think it was good enough for people in Australia to use it to get some sort of ECG test or indication. In many other countries around the world, the ECG app has been able to be used on the Apple Watch, but not in Australia. It's finally at the point where the TGA is satisfied with the quality of what you're getting out of that. So Apple will now put out an update for the Apple Watch, which would come out probably in the next couple of weeks, and then people will be able to do a single-channel electrocardiogram on their watch, which I just find absolutely incredible, Chris. I actually remember many years ago when I bought a watch, a sports watch, and I had to have a GPS unit that I'd clip on another arm and a chest band for heart rate. And I actually joked with the person selling me the whole equipment that wouldn't be great if you could do it all on the watch. And he kind of laughed at me and said, as if you'd ever be able to do that. Well, the watches that are available now, the Samsung watches, the Apple watches, have got GPS built in, they've got heart rate capabilities built in, and now we've got ECG built in. What next, Chris? What next?
So can you do the ECG just on the iPhone without the watch?
No, you have to have the watch, and to do the ECG, the watch itself can actually take your heart rate by looking at your wrist. So it actually shines a light onto your wrist to just detect the heart flow through your actual arm to pick up your heart rate. To do an ECG, you actually use that part of the watch, and you also put your finger on the crown so that it's presumably doing some sort of test across your heart as well, so that you do need the watch on your arm while you're doing it with your other hand as well. So again, the normal ECG, you'd have sensors stuck all over your chest to get that. That's still more accurate, and I suppose the important thing here is it's not designed to replace your doctor or medical professionals. It's really designed to give you an indication of your health that then, if something looks like it mightn't be right, go and see a medical professional. So it's really, if you like, just giving you some sort of indication about something might be wrong, go and get it checked out.
Okay, and do you want to buy a tweet? What does this mean, Matthew?
I had no idea what it meant. I was looking through for what we're going to talk about today, Chris, and I saw this story about Jack Dorsey, the billionaire co-founder and CEO of Twitter, who's attempting to sell his very first tweet. And I thought, how do you buy a tweet? How do you sell a tweet? And obviously, if I've got a beautiful painting, a Monet or something, I can sell that because it's a one-of-a-kind. But with Twitter, everything that's out there on Twitter is available for the public to see. This particular tweet, Jack Dorsey's first tweet, has been available to look at on Twitter since Twitter began. You can go and look at it right now. So why would I even buy that? Well, there's a thing called a non-fungible token. And I think this story is more about people trying to push the non-fungible token, or NFTs as they're called. And it really is an electronic signature. So if you apply an NFT to any piece of electronic data, so a bit of software, a document, or a tweet in this case, then that makes it the one of a kind. So this tweet, you can have an NFT applied to it. That makes you have the only signature in the world. And if you want to sell it later on, you've got that ability to do that. The tweet itself is not that exciting. The tweet was just Jack Dorsey saying, and I quote, "just setting up my Twitter," and Twitter spelled TWTTR. So that was the first tweet ever. You can go and buy that. Now, if you want to put a bid in for it, Chris, you need to pony up with a few dollars. I thought this might get a few dollars, and that was about it. The first bid started over $80,000. It's now at over $2.5 million for this tweet. So go and jump on your Twitter, see if there's any tweets you've got there that might be worth selling, and stick them out there.
Now, folding smartphones, I quite like them. Are they going to make a comeback, do you think?
Well, they have made a bit of a comeback, but they're a bit old-fashioned now, Chris. We've got something a bit better. Samsung, of course, have got two different folding phones, one that folds out like a book, and the other one's a clamshell. Huawei have got one, Motorola have got one, but Oppo have decided to go in a different direction. The idea, obviously, for all of these is to take a phone that's small enough to put in your pocket and easy enough to handle, but then when you want to use it and look at it, you want it bigger, a bit like a tablet if possible. Oppo has gone for a rollable smartphone. So they've just released a prototype of a rollable smartphone that essentially looks like a large-ish type smartphone. You press a button on the side and the sides expand out, so you get a very large smartphone, almost as big as a small tablet. So Oppo's gone down this direction. The idea is that all of these different screens are flexible. So whether you fold it, whether you roll it, whatever you do with it, you've got that flexibility with it. Whether or not rollable or foldable or something else altogether becomes the format of the future, I'm pretty sure that the good old-fashioned smartphone that just stays the one size all the time is not going to be what we'll be using in 5 years' time, Chris.
We are talking technology with Matthew Dickerson. And Matthew, would we feel safe on an all-electric aircraft? What about if NASA had built it?
There's a few people that have been a bit concerned about all-electric aircraft. There have been a few that have been built already, and they haven't been used on any routes yet, but the experts are saying that they're a perfect aircraft for short flights. So Bourke to Dubbo, for example, Dubbo to Sydney, those sort of length flights where the flight is typically less than an hour. Electric aircraft are fantastic for that. But people, understandably, have a minor concern that they're flying along and the pilot says, oh, the battery's a bit flat, and next thing you know, you're coming down the ground before you should have been coming down to the ground, not where an airport is. So NASA thought that if they're going to have to do some certification and develop some standards for these aircraft, they need to build one. So they built an X-57 Maxwell, which is basically their first all-electric X-plane. Now, what they're doing at the moment is they're doing a range of testing on the ground, which sounds pretty safe. So they effectively hook up the aircraft to a permanent power supply, they run the motors up, they run the motors down, they put them under stress, they do all the things that might happen in a flight except the flying part of it. Once they finish this part of the testing they're going through now, then they'll load it up with batteries, send it off in the sky and do all those tests again in the sky. Again, it's part of that certification standard that they want to introduce in America. But I think people, when they see an organisation like NASA, which typically has a fair bit of trust in the community, when they see an organisation like NASA build an all-electric aircraft, people might start thinking that maybe this isn't such a bad way to go and would feel a greater level of comfort walking onto an aircraft if they saw the NASA stamp on the side somewhere.
I guess electric aircrafts might be the future, perhaps not in our lifetime.
Look, I think in short flights, definitely in our lifetime, Chris. It depends how long you're planning on living. If you're planning on living 6 months, then maybe not. But I think
I'm going to be a robot in 2050.
That's true. We'll just take your brain, Chris, and drop it into a robot. But I think we will see again those short haul flights. That seems to be where the real efficiency is gained out of these aircraft. So I think we will see it. We'll see it in America before we'll see it in Australia, but I think we will see it in Australia at some stage. Let me put a time frame on it, Chris. I would say in 15 years' time, we'll see some electric aircraft on some short commercial routes in Australia.
And Matthew, speaking of flying, what is the closest thing to flying an aircraft?
Some of the VR headsets at the moment are quite incredible, and you can play some VR games and pretend you're doing a whole range of things on roller coasters, driving racing cars, actually flying a plane. But DJI has gone one step further than that. You can actually be flying a drone, but use a VR headset to watch what the drone sees. So you are in a VR environment, but you're in a VR environment actually controlling a real live thing. And so this whole concept is fantastic. DJI have created their own headset, their own drone, obviously, unbelievable camera quality that you're getting out of the drone that's feeding through to your display. The latency, they've really worked on the latency to basically process the signal as quickly as possible. Getting the signal from the drone to the human doesn't take very long. We're talking about electromagnetic rays travelling at the speed of light, effectively 3 by 10 to the 8 metres per second. But it's actually processing that footage at both ends that takes the time. So they've got that latency down to a very low level. And so you can be watching on your headset pretty much exactly what's happening in real time on the actual drone itself. One of the things that they found in their first testing they did was that even when they had pilots, professional pilots flying the drone, because it was just a bit disorienting with the fact that you were staying still but you were watching something that was moving, people started to feel sick quite quickly. And again, it's that your body is confused because your head's staying still, you know you're not moving, but you're watching something and your eyes are telling you you are moving. So that disorientation is probably the trickiest part for it. But in general, it sounds like a very cool thing to go and do, fly a drone with your VR headset.
Great, Matthew. Thanks for your time today. People can go and have a look at your YouTube channel. Just search Matthew Dickerson. We'll talk again next Wednesday, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Great to chat.